After 12 years at the helm of Golden Boy Promotion, CEO Richard Schaefer has stepped down immediately. We are making the rounds. My name is Brian Campbell. With us to talk about it, senior writer Dan Rafael. And Dan, you just got off the phone with Schaefer. We know there had been some infighting on the Golden Boy side between him and Oscar De La Hoya. What is the reason for him stepping down at this point?
You know, Richard Schaefer, Brian, issued a statement saying that he had a good run, that he still was a shareholder in the company, and obviously for that reason wanted to see the company have success. But both in the statement as well as when I spoke to him, he did not want to get into the particulars. This is still a matter that's with the lawyers. You know, suffice it to say, I think we're going to see Richard Schaefer involved in the boxing business in some other capacity at another company or in his own company. But the fact of the matter is, the CEO of the #1 promoter in the world walking away is going to mean a major change for the boxing business landscape, without question.
Dan, so many ways we can go with this right now. There's so many obvious questions. Let's look specifically at both Golden Boy Promotions and Richard Schaefer. Where does either one go at this point?
Well, Richard Schaefer has left the company and will most likely strike out on his own. You know, he did tell me that he did plan to stay in boxing in some capacity. What that capacity is, he didn't want to get into those details for obvious reasons. But, you know, he's not going anywhere. He's still going to be a promoter for sure. Whether it's involved with Floyd Mayweather, who he's very close to, or with Al Heyman, the manager advisor that he has worked with so many of the boxers that have been on Golden Boy cards, even though they were not under promotional contract. These are all questions that we'll find out the answers to in the coming weeks and months.
Dan, I think the big question on everyone's mind from a boxing fan standpoint, does this decision get us any closer to a thaw in this overall promotional and network Cold War?
Well, the network Cold War is a myth because networks are competitors and they have completely different agendas. So they have no desire or reason or need to work together, and they never really have, other than one example with Lewis and Tyson many years ago. As far as a thaw in the promotional Cold War, I think it does mean that there will be a thaw because Oscar De La Hoya has made amends and is now friendly once again with Bob Arum from Top Rank. The question, though, is even if there's a thaw in that relationship, the boxers that would be the most interesting to make the big fights with are not Golden Boy promoted fighters in terms of an actual contract. Those are Al Heyman fighters. And so those fighters have a very good chance that with Richard's exit, may be on their way out from Golden Boy also. So Oscar will be left with a stable of boxers, some of whom are very good and could theoretically make fights, but not the biggest fights. So, yes, there will be a thaw in the Cold War, it seems, but that doesn't mean it's going to lead to the biggest and the best fights at the moment.
Dan, do you think there's any reason that Richard would have to sit out? Is there any sort of non-compete that could keep him out of the action for a while?
You know, I'm not privy to the details of his contract, but I'll say this. I would be absolutely shocked if his employment contract with the Golden Boy did not contain some kind of language that talked about a non-compete. However, being that it's in California where there's the most liberal interpretation of the laws in California, and I've been kind of studying up on this because I knew this day was probably coming. The courts in California do not recognize non-compete clauses very frequently. So in my estimation, I think that's probably one of the things that the lawyers were ironing out, and that we're not going to have to see Richard Schaefer sit out, certainly not for any length of time.
Dan, going back to Golden Boy one quick second, we know Oscar De La Hoya has said publicly he's looking to make amends with Bob Arum. We know they've met. Can you see them working together very soon? I
can definitely see them working together. The level of fight that they can make, you know, seems to be unclear at the moment, given the fact that we don't know what's going to take place with regard to the boxers that have populated the Golden Boy cards that are not under contract to them, as well as the fact that Golden Boy, although it doesn't necessarily have a official contractual output deal with Showtime, just look at the shows that they put on Showtime over the last last couple of years have basically all been Golden Boy promoted events with a few rare exceptions. So does Showtime stay with the Al Heyman fighters and possibly Richard Schaefer as the promoter of those fighters, or do they stick with Oscar De La Hoya and the boxers that stay under contract to Golden Boy? There's a million questions, Brian, in this, and right now the only thing we know for sure is Richard Schaefer is out as the CEO. what's going to happen in the future is unclear. I kind of knew this was coming. I think everybody that could read the tea leaves, it became very obvious to me about a week and a half ago when I talked to Richard Schaefer and I asked him point blank, hey, Richard, are you going to be attending the Boxing Hall of Fame inductions on Sunday, which is when Oscar is being inducted into the Hall of Fame? And he told me, A, no, that he wasn't, and B, he knew where he wasn't wanted. So as soon as I heard that, I knew there's no possible way that he's staying at the company, and here we are a week, 10 days later, and that's exactly the case.
Dan, thanks so much for the insight. For more news and to follow this story, stay close to the ESPN.com boxing page, and we are making the rounds. For Dan Rafael, I am Brian Campbell.